We are very excited to let you know of a group due to begin on the 7th of October. It's going to be for 2 hours on a Tuesday evening, the first and the third Tuesday evenings for 3 months. It's for autistic people in relationships with non-autistic people. It's really a place for support, connection. We're going to limit the numbers to a maximum of 8. It'll be online. I think I've covered everything. Is there anything I haven't covered, Leo?
For more information, go to autisticlicense.com/groups. Welcome to the Autistic License podcast. I'm Leo in London. Actually, Suffolk, England.
I'm Siana, and I'm in Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland.
We invite you to listen in on our conversations as we experiment with unmasking in an autistic space. We talk about what it means to discover we're autistic as adults, especially with established careers as therapists. We want people to know that autistic therapists exist and to broaden the conversation about neurodiversity. You're so welcome to join us, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. We hope you'll find something of interest and connection here.
Hello, lovely listeners from Suffolk.
From Leo's new house. I think this will bring a lot of things together that we've spoken about on the podcast before. There's been quite a build-up to me moving here. We've talked about that. And we've talked about coincidence a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And almost this time last year, you started talking about your genealogy.
Oh, okay.
Journey.
I didn't know what you were meaning there. I thought you had some kind of big master plan of what we were going to talk about.
I do. This is it.
Okay. All right. A departure from the norm, lovely listeners. Leo has a plan. The problem is he hasn't actually shared it with me yet.
Well, otherwise it wouldn't be spontaneous, would it?
Well, if you've got a plan, it's not going to be spontaneous.
Okay, I haven't got a plan. I just thought of the things that went together.
Yes.
So I'm in a particular village in the middle of Suffolk. It's not a big village. I don't actually know what the kind of range of populations of villages are, but this is about 2,000 people who live here at the moment. And I live in a bit that's developed very recently. This house is about 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a new part, but there's an old part. And the old part goes back many, many hundreds of years in the middle. And
Okay, you want me to take over? Leo's just nodded at me across the living room. Yes, okay. So my great-great-great-great-grandmother happens to have lived in this village. And
was born in this village.
Was born in this village, yeah. That's right. Was born in this village and then came back again towards the end of her life.
And we found this out. You found this out today.
I found this out today because I thought, well, while I'm here, I'll go into my family tree and see if there's anything nearby that we could go and visit. Because most of my family is Norfolk, but I knew that there was some Suffolk connections going back a couple of 100 years. So this woman was born in 1773. So she was born 202 years before me. Mm-hmm. And she is my paternal grandfather's grandfather's grandmother, which makes her my great-great-great-great grandmother. And she spent the last years of her life here. There was a census in 1841 and 1851, and she was living here, and she died in 1853, 2 years after that census, when she was 80. So that was really exciting because I knew there was Suffolk connections, but that name, that village name hadn't registered for me. And I just, because I suppose I looked into all of that months and months and months ago, and I really was looking at the Norfolk ones, and I just knew there was a bit of Suffolk, but hadn't really gone into when that happened. And a lot of the people like, this person's parents actually were Norfolk people, and then later on, the generations after that moved to Norfolk. So this was just like a little dip into Suffolk for that generation, and it just so happened that part of their time was spent here, and another part of their time was spent not very many miles away.
Not at all, within 10 miles.
I thought that was amazing in itself, let alone that whenever it actually turned out that she had been born here and returned here at the end of her life.
We have a Hornet update for you as well from a couple of episodes ago.
Oh, yes. So today, when we were looking at the graves, because I decided that maybe there might just be a grave that happened to be here for my great-great-great-great-grandmother. But unfortunately, most of the graves were actually illegible. Yeah. So I'll have to do some more research or contact the local church and find out if I can locate her grave. But yes, when we were out wandering around, just after we'd finished wandering around the cemeteries, the two cemeteries, then Leo was procrastinating a little bit in a bus shelter. And bus shelters can be particularly gross, especially because there can be insects and things around. So,
okay, hold on just a second. This is editor Leo here. I'm concerned about the picture that Siana's painting of me hanging around or procrastinating in some grotty metal and concrete bus shelter, which I wasn't doing. So this is... This is actually a little community bus shelter. It's very old. It's quite pretty. And it's where all the community notices are posted. And that's what I was looking at. Link to a picture of this lovely bus shelter on the website. Back to Siana and her misleading description of my activities in a bus shelter.
In an effort to get Leo to move on in a polite way, I just started to tell the story of how gross bus shelters can be and how insects can be. And then Leo wasn't really moving, so then a hornet arrived to kind of
move us on. And isn't that the symbolism that we discovered when we last spoke about hornets, that they are there to help you move through things?
Fucking massive.
Amazing. It's amazing. It is amazing. So it's coincidence upon coincidence, and it absolutely delights me. And I said before, I don't really necessarily think there's meaning to it or not, but it is wonderful. And
well, you say that every single time you say I don't think there's meaning to it, and then you talk about it and it seems like there is.
Well, there might be. I'm just not insisting on it. But it is incredible that you have come to visit me for the first time in a house I just moved into. You're not local. No. You've come several hundred miles to get here, and that you have a bloodline that comes from here from 250 odd years ago, 252 years ago.
202 years ago.
Between them and you being born, but today.
Okay. Today, well done.
So 252 years ago.
252, yeah.
In 1773, your great-great-great-great-grandmother was born yards from where we're speaking now. We don't know exactly where, but it's a small village.
Yes.
And so it's incredible.
It is incredible. So I'm here, lovely listeners, and Leo has found himself in a wonderful place. It's a great house. It's a great neighbourhood. So quiet.
Isn't it? That's
so quiet and peaceful. And the house is wonderful, even in the sense of like, it's been really hot. And the house just has this way of keeping as cool as possible, like the breeze, yes. The way that, it must be like its positioning, isn't it? And where it faces, but also the way that the breeze comes through keeps it kind of
Yeah, we've been really pleasantly surprised, especially as listeners will know, my previous office where I lived in London was always a sweatbox. It was horrible. And now I think my office here seems to be the coolest room in the house.
That is another thing that you seem intent on bringing into every episode.
What, being hot?
No, your office being a sweatbox.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't really know what your office here is like. Well, no, you did.
No,
you
I do. I worked in it for a week, and during that time, at least, and that was before it got very hot, but it was the coolest room in the house rather than the hottest.
Oh, really? What's that?
As long as the windows are open, it's very, very comfortable. I think everything is very, very comfortable.
Wonderful. Yes.
And the peace and quiet is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a cul-de-sac too, so a dead-end street, so there's no through traffic. Not that there's much anyway. And the sound is just bird song and the occasional ice cream van.
Very occasional that you hear anything. Yes. So, your feelings. What are your feelings?
Well, it's a mixture of calm and excited. Because I'm still unpacking things. Today, there's been a bit of picture hanging, not as much as we hoped, but the spirit level and the tape measure's been out.
Right.
And deciding where things go and what colour schemes are developing and where things are comfortable. That's the main thing. And I get to set everything up here eventually in the way that's most comfortable. And being autistic and being ADHD are big ingredients in kind of defining how that turns out.
That's right.
So whiteboards on most of the walls to scribble thoughts down as I pass because I'd have forgotten by the time I get to the other end of the room. I'm looking forward to working from here. I'm now online only because I've moved 100 or so miles from London, and so the people that would have seen me in person shan't be doing that anymore. But that's kind of a direction I've wanted to go in, again, comfort-wise, not to have to transition between in person and online, which is not terrible, but it does take more energy than I realise now. I don't have to do it. But no work at the moment because I've taken 3 weeks off. You are not working at the moment.
I'm not working at the moment, no, because I'm here.
Yep. It's only been a week and a day or two since I closed shop for the summer.
Remember that dodgy song, Staying Out for the Summer? It just reminded me of that.
Staying Out for the Summer. That's very
like
funny.
1995, and I'm not going to sing, but it just reminded me of it.
Oh, go on.
I never do this, lovely listeners, because the problem is that Leo has a really good voice and I don't. Well, it's yet to be seen. I guess I've never been discovered because whenever I was in primary school, I was too shy and I just used to mime. So I always used to be turned away for the choir on the basis of them not being able to hear me rather than that I actually sang. So,
that's a shame, isn't it? I'll have to encourage you to find
I'm hardly going to sing now into a microphone.
I can understand that. That's
then
fair enough. That would be a big leap. But
you could listen back to it and then analyse my singing voice because it would be on recording. But my question, which might get us into some interesting discussion, is what were you doing in summer 1995?
1995. So, I think I was... Okay, so my mum's mum died that year in May, and family didn't put the house on the market for a while, so my sister and I moved in there, and we lived there together for like a year and a half, I think. So we were living there. I was a graphic designer at the time, and I was working in various kind of corporate places. My first marriage ended at the beginning of that year.
Okay.
And that is a coincidence there because just yesterday I came across the photograph of me throwing my wedding ring in the River Thames from Hungerford Bridge. So that's come around. Oh, and of course, so that was like 30 years ago this year,
1990.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Blimey, I'm old.
It's Leo's birthday tomorrow.
Oh, there is that as well, so I'll be a little bit older. I'm as old as me gums and a little bit older than me teeth.
I've never heard that before. But actually, what were you doing in summer 1995?
Summer.
You were working.
Well, I was working, so
you were working in a graphic design job.
Yes. I don't know that I remember much. I think I know where I was working. That would have been when I was at Cable and Wireless. So I made a couple of good friends there who have stayed friends to this day.
Cable and Wireless was a phone company.
Yes.
Like BT.
Like BT, but older. They laid the original transatlantic cables from America to United Kingdom. And I worked in the design studio there. I don't know what else was going on. I joined a couple of bands. There you go.
Okay.
So that was the first time I'd been in bands for a while. And so I was doing quite a few gigs and some recording as well. In fact, those are some of the photos that we found.
That's right.
So I was in a recording studio because I was wearing the divorce petition T-shirt that I printed.
That's right. In case you're not going to be polite and ask me what I was doing in 1995, I'll just ask myself.
Yeah, you may
pass my mind back and see what I can remember. Okay, so 1995 was the end of a gap year. I didn't want to go to university straight from school, and I was like involved in very kind of culty Christian sort of parachurch, I suppose you would say.
So you were mostly 18 and you turned 19, didn't you?
I turned 19. I did my A-levels in 94. And I was involved with this organisation, a parachurch organisation, and I went away for a year with them on a team, like a kind of an evangelical mission kind of thing. But actually we were sent to a town, a border town, and this is during the Troubles, and it would not have been safe to do evangelical work. So we actually did more humanitarian stuff, which was great. So it was more like a kind of a service, kind of like just, kids clubs and, youth clubs, but it was social and it was service as opposed to any kind of evangelical stuff.
Did you say parachurch?
As parachurch.
What does that mean?
I think it's the right word. It basically means organisations that aren't church-based, but they're Christian.
Okay.
So they're like...
So is that like parallel, like alongside or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to look it up, but I think they're called parachurch organisations. So there's many, many, many of them in the UK and probably throughout the world. So just organisations is really big business, especially for Christian young people, where they run like big rallies that are basically like pop concerts, and they recruit you in, and they have all sorts of festivals, and like in some ways they replicate the music festivals, but it's all like Christianized and, hyper emotional and
when you say Christian, for the context, you're talking about Protestant.
Talking about charismatic, evangelical.
But specifically not Catholic. All I'm thinking of, again, is you said being sent to a border town during the Troubles, where the division was religious.
The division was religious, but more political. But these organisations would not have necessarily understood any of that, because their way was the only way and everybody needed to hear that message. Very culty whenever I look back, but massive in Northern Ireland. And I mean, a lot of those organisations as well, like they're big business in the UK and even now, but I see there's so many sort of scandals and abuse cases and things like that are all coming out now related to what went on back in the 90s, when there was just so much went on, so much bad practice in terms of the kind of grooming and the idolisation, the hero worship of some of the leaders within it. They were really like mega stars and would have kind of preyed on vulnerable young people. And I wasn't caught up directly in that. But
what was that experience for you? I mean, were you comfortable?
It was my social life. You know, so when I think back on that, I can see how attractive it was. I kind of got what they would call saved into it, but converted into it, age 16, when I was terribly unhappy, and would have got more and more and more unhappy and depressed and entrenched. And what it gave me was this idea that there was actually this father figure who loved and adored and had a great plan for my life. And there was all these people who all seemed so cool and so fun and so exciting that I could meet whenever there was all these huge emotional festivals. They were like pop concerts, you know, and they were free. So they were accessible to people who didn't have a lot of money. And, you know, it felt good, you know, the emotional charge, the praying, the ecstasy that comes from the music and the hype. You know, it feels good, and you're surrounded by a lot of people you would otherwise not meet. And, you know, they're not weird people, they're just like you, but they're, you know, so an opportunity like this to go away for, you know, a year and live with other young people. And we raised the money for it. So, like, before I went, I had a big party, and there was a big concert that people played for me. You know, so you raise all your own support. Yeah. You just could call in
Siana stock.
Well, no, but like, you know, people would do that for each other. There's a lot of talented people within that community as well. A lot of people become musicians because they get to play in church bands. And actually these bands some of them are very, very good. And they have all the gear to practice. I mean, they're on stages, and, you know, like it's a whole subculture in itself. And, you know, so it certainly kept me from depression and lots of other things that might have happened. And it's an adventure. You know, we went away for this year, and we were we were provided with a house. There was 4 of us. We were all 18, 19. We had a car. And what's massive, your independence, you're cooking, you're managing all that. You're managing on a small budget, but you're having to run things. You're having to produce your publicity to run things, put on events. There was a certain amount. We were accountable to the church minister who was in charge of us, as well as some other people. So we had to learn a lot of skills to do all this stuff. And it certainly prepares you for being away from home in a more real way than sometimes university halls might do. But then that also contributed to when I went away to university, that didn't work for me because there was such a massive contrast between the poverty of the people around me that I had been working with for that year out. And then I went to a very prestigious university where there were all these what used to be called YAs, so public school people at them, and I couldn't relate. You know, I couldn't relate at all, because I had really had my eyes opened during my year out and couldn't go back to that. So summer 95 was the end of that year, and I think we finished up end of July. And then, so then I would have went home for a month, 6 weeks, and then went away to university in Scotland, in which I became rapidly suicidal, actually, and came home again in the January 1996. I really, really couldn't cope with that. And so that's what I was doing. But I was happy in 1995. Like I was just a normal 19-year-old, as normal as I got, really. At that
I can
point.
hear kind of ignoring the wider context of what you later found to be troubling about that environment and how it was operated, but the actual experiences that you've just been talking about at that age do sound like they were really not just enjoyable and engrossing, but very useful.
Yeah. We had to budget.
Yes,
the 4 of us had to budget and make sure there was enough money. And
you had purpose.
We had purpose. Yeah. Yeah.
That's an incredible environment and experience. It sounds like fairly suddenly come into at a really pivotal age.
I think that
in terms of your development, and
I think that's not recognised enough in some of those agencies. You're expected to do a lot when you still have quite a lot of growing up. You know, it's a very, very different way to spend that year, because then that put me out of sync with other people.
Coming out of that and then going into uni, you were very out of sync with other people. But I was also thinking as well that you had a built-in out of syncness anyway that you weren't aware of then.
Yeah.
So I'm also thinking about what part that played in that experience of being away, all those responsibilities, emotional contact with younger teens and help, because you may have had something extra. Actually, I wonder if there was maybe a greater connection with some of the troubled people that you had to unexpectedly deal with. I mean, not unexpectedly, in that that's what you were going for. You were going to. We were children's and youth workers. That's what we were there to do. I don't look back and think, oh, I worked with autistic people and I was autistic. So I don't really see that came into it. I think actually it was autistically friendly. Had anybody, sat down and thought, what does Siana need? They would have thought, she does not need to go away to a strange environment, to live in halls, to share a room with a stranger, to be pressured to go to social events. And this took all of that away from me. So this was, a relatively safe way for me to learn and develop those kind of skills outside of the peer social pressure of being so cool and being, that kind of thing. And peer pressure, there's just, it wasn't there, So, and the people that I was with, so I think we would have we did meet up quite often. I don't know how often, with the other people, so the other two teams. And, that we were all exactly the same age. We'd all just left school. So there was an instant bond with these other young people, and we were doing something that no one else was doing. So it was a very small group without all the pressure of, and I guess you knew you were kind of weird because you were doing this thing, but whenever you're that age, you kind of, it's like, well, that's what we're doing. But that was way easier for me. Oh, Leo has opened the window to try and prove how quiet this place is. And actually, there's a siren. It's like being back in Tottenham.
So, yeah, I guess when I look at it like that took all that pressure. I wasn't trying to, I didn't have to make friends. I was given 11 people. So, I'd 11 people doing exactly the same thing with me as me. I didn't have to go away, share a room with a stranger, be in lectures with 200 people and have to make friends and pretend and mask. And I didn't have to do any of that, actually. It was just, you four are going to live in a house together, and here's your budget, and here's what you have to achieve. And we had to do it.
And looking back on it now and telling me about it and the listeners, what's that like?
Well, but it's definitely a different perspective. As I get older and I look back, I have all sorts of different perspectives on things, but my perspective now is what I just said, that actually it was a really, really good option for me. I think that there's been times whenever I've said, oh, like that was just brainwashing, and it held me back, and there was no need to be doing that, or it was irresponsible, like bad things could have happened, or didn't really achieve anything, or there's all sorts of ways that I've made sense of it over the years. But whenever I look back now, I think that it gave me some of those experiences that then meant that I didn't have to do all of that at once. It just, the next year wasn't the best way to go after that, which I think I knew, but I did not know how to get out of it, because I had a deferred offer, and, you know, I had significantly overachieved in my A levels compared to what everybody thought I would. So it would have felt like, well, why would you throw away a place when you've, you know, got the grades and more for that place? So it would have been like, well, why don't you just do it? To anyone looking at it, there wasn't a plausible, or there was nothing that I had to say, oh, this would be better for me. I didn't have any clue, you know. I think at that time I just would have wanted to stay and help people, in inverted commas, and not go back to education. And that wasn't available. And I certainly wouldn't have been ready to just apply for jobs and go and live away from home. You know, everybody that I knew was studying and was either already in education or was moving into education. So that nobody talked to me about it, and nobody supported or helped me to find another option. And in some ways it must have felt like I, you know, almost proved anybody who was ambitious right by overperforming. I guess if I hadn't have performed, then I wouldn't have gone there, because they wouldn't have accepted me. The university would have said, well, it's a conditional offer you didn't achieve. So then do you fill in a UCAS form for the next year or do you not? Which might have been better for me, because then I might have looked at it again and chosen a different course based on what I was going through. But then it kind of crept up on me. And then what else do you do? You know, I wasn't thinking during that year out, oh, I'm going to uni next year. What am I going to do? Because I don't want to go back into looking at all of that, you know. So I just put it off and thought, well, it'll come round when it comes round. But yeah, I wasn't excited. I felt like it was going to be hard, but then it turned out to be even harder in so many ways than I could have ever imagined. And again, you know, I guess that the kind of place that I went to, which is incredibly pretty and small, you know, it could have been good for me. There was just such a clash for me at that age between the poverty and the need that I had worked with the year before, and the snobbery and the privilege and entitlement of really selfish 18-year-olds around me. Like it was just chalk and cheese, and I couldn't reconcile it, because these were typical party hard, born with a silver spoon in their mouth, you know, public school people. A lot of them. Although I've still got a very close friend from that time who lives in London and I see regularly. But the majority were. It was offensive to me, and maybe that is the autism in me as well. I had nothing at all in common with these people.
But they were clashing with a kind of more deeply held set of values than maybe some people would have at that age. Even,
I had developed that because of what I had seen the year before.
As an autistic person,
an autistic person maybe. Who had never really been exposed to that kind of stuff either. Because it also blew apart all of my, you know, all the segregation that I had, and that most people in Northern Ireland have lived with.
Yes.
If you send for, you know, sheltered Protestant 18-year-olds to a border town during the Troubles, they have to address, you know, all of their shits. We had to, and realise that it didn't make sense. We were just clueless. So we had to do our own, you know, opening up and ecumenical kind of process without any support to survive in that kind of a culture. But
you didn't just run off and go, I can't do this. And I'm projecting here because I think that's what I would have done.
I don't. Why would I do that?
Well, to suddenly be in such a, what, you know, although what it turned into was, in many, especially practical ways, a really positive experience. The sense of maybe culture shock, transition, all the things that I know I'm really sensitive to and find incredibly uncomfortable, didn't make you run.
No, I was very unhappy in the constraints that I had in my small town Protestant community
that you grew up in, rather than the one that you went. Yes,
we didn't go to a Protestant community. I knew it was narrow, and in some ways, part of what Christianity was offering was to not be in that. So it was offering a way out of the political commodification of God and religion, and it was saying God is so much bigger. And it offered people who wanted to go to other countries. All of these parachurch organisations gave people opportunities to go to Africa, to the States, to, I stayed here probably because I'm autistic here. I stayed in the UK, in Ireland, where a friend of mine went to the States for a year when she was 18, a close friend of mine. So she actually came back and started university, a year late as well, although she stayed in Belfast, which would have been better for me. But, people went away off with these organisations as well. So I guess that was the autism, that I was not in any way ready to do something like that. Yeah, so Christianity kind of gave the vision of life is much bigger than just what you know. And so it felt like an opportunity. This was an opportunity I would never, ever, ever get to see all these things that I would never get to see, and to have my mind broadened, my heart opened, my mind opened. I don't know how to describe it, but you start to realise, in just the same way as you start to realise about white, privilege and, your unconscious biases and prejudices, we started to realise how much we had, and how we had to change all of what the assumptions kind of were about what we might be doing in order to fit into the culture in which we were actually in, and then make a case for that as well, and do that. So there was a lot of those kind of skills that I liked, but it did obviously then make me different than the people who hadn't had that experience, let alone the ones that I went away to. And I think a lot of that kind of stuff is totally underestimated. What happens when you send 18-year-olds away for this really immersive, transformative experience, which it is. But then what happens when they have to integrate back in again? And who supports? Well, there's nobody to support with that. And I guess some people make it, some people don't. But I didn't. Would have been no part of me that wanted to get away or wanted to be somewhere else. So I was very ambivalent about university or anything like that. Yeah.
Wow. When you're thinking about back to that now, and you're talking about it now, it seems that you're recognising a lot about the day-to-day experiential. Well, I can't say experience now because I just said experiential. The day-to-day experience of that year. And that seems to me, listening to you, to have just come up in prominence a bit against the wider religious, what's the word? Dogmatic, part of it that you later found difficult and repellent, really. I think that's really important, isn't it? About any period of your life that was, or that turned into something difficult, it can be that we don't remember what we can take forward from it. And clearly a lot of that, especially at that age, especially as an autistic person, must have contributed hugely to everything that went afterwards, in the most positive way too. not to condone that as a good idea for 18-year-olds to be placed in.
But those kind of church groups, the same way, and in some way that the things that we set up would have had a good effect, and sometimes a really long-term effect on some of the people who benefited from the things that we did. And there were people.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of good things that come out, and there's a lot of young people's lives that are quite possibly prolonged and made more endurable due to the culture that they get to be part of at that stage.
And I suppose, yes, I can imagine, again, thinking back to the kind of sectarianism, that for some of those people to have been exposed to cultural experiences that they otherwise would have been as restricted from as you were at home will have had a ripple effect on how they see the world too.
That's right. At that kind of age, but then of course you have the other side of that, where if you were not straight, you could have been highly damaged from being in that environment. So it would be better if you didn't come across that. And so then that caused a lot of damage during those years if people wanted to be part of it but felt fundamentally sinful or excluded from it. Then the message was not one at all of inclusivity and everyone belongs. You had to repress and change all of that. And it definitely, my sexuality was repressed, and most people that I was around, our sexuality was repressed. So that was the downside of it as well, that there was certainly a cost, and your whole sense of ambition, they taught you that had to be all caught up with service and giving and everything like that, and doing what supposedly God had for you to do. So it really fed into that kind of self-sacrifice, which is not necessarily appropriate for 18-year-olds who it is perfectly okay for 18-year-olds to go out and have a good time and explore their sexuality and do all that kind of stuff. So I think that there's a dark side, and obviously all these scandals and everything that's coming out in recent years shows a lot of that, where some of those people, there was a good side to what they were experiencing, in terms of some of the connections and the opportunities, but there was also, abusive and exploitative sides to it. I think that, in some ways, if you can do it for a few years and then get out, it's probably best. So
as you did.
Well, I didn't. I did it for about 20 years before I got out. I didn't get out for many, many, many years after that. I didn't do those kind of things, but they had me hooked in terms of my attitude to, a lot of my attitude to the work I do, the lack of expectation I have about payment, like the amount of money that I gave away for 20 years of my life, all of that kind of indoctrination was with me, even when I wasn't attending church and didn't believe in any of the stuff. I still gave away 1/10 of my income and did all that stuff because I had been indoctrinated to, wasn't, my attitude to fun, everything like that came from those kind of messages. No, I wish I got out a few years later. That didn't happen. It took decades to get me out of it, really. Maybe not even out of it now. I don't know.
How so?
Well, in terms of what I've just said, in terms of my attitude to fun, and in terms of my attitude to having a nice life while other people are suffering, or earning money, simply earning money, and being paid what I'm apparently worth, and not feeling like I have to give rather than receive. But that's all. It's massive, and that's that's all to do with that kind of teaching. That didn't come from my parents. That came from the church.
Well, that was 30 years ago.
That was 30 years ago.
And we're in the middle of summer 2025 now. And there is change and transition happening, but on purpose. Do you feel free, self-determined?
Do I feel free and self-determined?
Yes.
That's your question.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you do?
I think more than before. Yes.
Do you look back at 1995 and now? Is there something that you can see in that that's different? Because obviously you were a proper grown-up of sorts in 1995, whereas I was, I was 19.
Yes. Yeah.
So you were
coming
29.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something that's more to do with all of the revelations about my neurodivergence and how my mind really works and how damaging and limiting it was not to know. And so in 1995, even though I was in my late 20s and had a career of sorts just about by then and was living away from home by then, I was still incredibly unhappy and very, very insecure and kind of waiting for real life to start any minute. And
oh, really? That's how you felt?
I think I felt that until just a few years ago, to be honest.
My goodness.
Any moment now, I'll be a proper grown-up and real life and kind of get going. But also just feeling that, especially at work, because these things are often concentrated in your work life because it's so specific and contained, but just generally, that I was faking it and failing, and what I now know to just be the horrible effects of masking all the time. And so there is definitely a real sense of freedom now because I don't do that anymore. And I genuinely don't think that there is this underlying undercurrent of anxiety anymore. And that's recent. That's in the last 2 or 3 years. And I have not experienced that before. So I would say maybe that's what drove my question to you, perhaps, in the back of my mind, is I really do see a very big contrast, actually, although I wasn't consciously thinking about it until just now, that there was this feeling of, I wouldn't say restriction, actually, I'd probably say more weight, just extreme weight and heaviness and discomfort underlying everything. And I don't have that now. And it's a shame that I didn't get to that quite a bit younger. And of course this is going to resonate with very many late diagnosed autistic adults. It's the agony and the ecstasy of late diagnosis, is that, on the one hand, oh, lovely, everything makes sense now, and then, oh, how different it would have been if this could have happened 30 years ago or more.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking about those pictures that you showed me of when you're in the recording studio, doing the recording studio. There's like maybe one in the recording studio and there's one in your office, but you're wearing that T-shirt.
That's right.
Isn't that right? And like, to anybody just looking at the photographs, you look pretty happy. Obviously you're with people, you've got friends, it's kind of just a normal young adult. And yet that's not how you felt inside. But I don't think anybody would have... Oh, it's a masking, of course.
It's masking, but you mask to yourself as well. So I would have described myself as those things, as kind of laid back, happy-go-lucky, got lots of friends, being the joker and exuberant. But,
But that's not how you felt.
By the end of the day, though, especially that would have been the time that I had started living on my own.
Yes.
On and off. And then properly just a few years later, actually. But was just...
Yeah, well, you said that year you and Esme moved in.
Yes.
So so just after your marriage broke down, did you do that?
Just a few months later, that's right.
It's interesting because I don't see that year we're talking about as a masking year. And I actually think part of the clash with going to university was, fuck, I have to mask.
Yes.
I was just thinking I couldn't.
No, actually, you were, in many ways, probably not always, but listening to what you were saying before, that putting you into that particular contained situation with a structure around it, as you said, was quite autism friendly.
It was, actually.
And so, you were probably given, you were away from your family and whatever masking was going on there. And with new people you didn't, I guess, have to mask with, although, we know that's a subconscious process you wouldn't have been aware of. No, I didn't.
I don't think I did have to mask. I think we were allowed to we allowed each other to just be how we were. And it was way less masking than there might have been in the bigger Christian context where you're trying to be cool and you're trying to be popular and you're trying to be all those things. When there's only like the 12 of you. Yeah. And you're not, because you're not really a part of that. So it's interesting to think I probably had a whole year off masking, and then I was going into such a fake environment where if I wanted to, I could, but I absolutely did not, and utterly resisted masking, which I think was maybe why it was so bad when I went into the Scotland University. So that, saying it like that makes a lot of sense as well, where I had this opportunity not to mask, and we know what a huge contributor masking is to autistic burnout. Really, really damaging, and that it can take so long to recover from. It's really not that surprising. Yeah. With all the lovely hindsight and awareness and being diagnosed that we have. And I went downhill fast. Like within those 4 months, I was suicidal, burnt out on the floor. And I was not like that in the summer of 1995. It wasn't predictable at all. So that was really fast, because of feeling a complete and utter alien. And I must have masked in a way to get through, but then I also didn't. But then that didn't do me any favours, because I was so different and had to experience that. Yeah, this is making me think even more about it. And then I must have compromised then after that somehow, and as part of the recovery, of taking on some elements of masking that were needed to function again, which took a long time. It was, even though I went to university in Belfast the year after, but it really took me years to be back with any kind of energy from that burnout that happened, that kind of 19 turning 20 year. Guess I had some agency then, because I came back and I said I want to go to Queen's, and Queen's is the university in Belfast. So I said I'm not going away. I lived away from home. I lived with friends, but actually what I got to do there was I didn't move into halls, because I already had so many friends that were in Belfast that I could move into a house share, which I knew was way better suited for me than a big halls environment. Absolutely. So I guess I had autonomy then. I was able to say, that's what I'm going to do when I go to university. It has to be just in a house with 4 people. And I got to do that right the way through. So that was probably really helpful learning as well, and started to get some agency back at that stage.
it's always interesting when we've done it, because I suppose also the further back you go, the bigger and bigger and bigger that chasm is, because if I'm 19 but you're 9, that's like a very, very different life experience. But if you're 49 and I'm 58, oh yeah, there are reference points that are very different, but we're essentially living similar lives.
Yeah, that makes me think about the Dukes of Hazzard, because
again,
because that was something that we had a cultural reference point of. You must have been watching that in your teens when I was watching it in my childhood, but we had that. Yeah, it was really funny to realise that we both had that. And yes, and I actually appear to have had an autistic special interest in the Dukes of Hazzard without realising, since I remembered the names of the
brothers,
the new brothers coming in, not just the.
In fact, were they brothers or were they cousins?
They were cousins, but they were modelled on the same personalities. So it was almost like people had just been substituted in, but the story was that they were cousins. And it was really very perplexing when I was 6.
And also the other kind of cultural reference point that it turned out we shared, and it was unexpected for me, was Fawlty Towers. Because again, that is a 1970s show that I was watching as not a small child.
It must have been rerun. I must have seen rerun.
But it was actually rerun, like it wasn't rerun for years and years.
Okay.
And I think it was eventually, but there was a big thing about it not being rerun.
Okay.
But, you do, like me, know most of the script, most of the episodes, and that's very unusual. I don't normally get to hang out with somebody who we can quote Fawlty Towers at each other. But yeah, maybe you're right though. Maybe genuinely, there was something in there that sparked your autistic replay and appreciation and something.
But you've had loads and loads of shows like that, and I haven't.
Oh yes, no, that's true. Well, because that did definitely become a thing for me, was comedy and learning and memorising many, many things. In fact, minutes before we started our recording this evening, I watched, which I'm going to stick a link to in the show notes because I recommend it, the series Black Books. And we watched the first episode of that, and you commented, and I was only noticing it as we watched it together, how Fawlty Towers and John Cleese like.
Oh,
Bernard Black's
like
character.
He has modelled himself on John Cleese.
But him being Irish as well, though, it contextualises it away from that somehow. Link in the show notes to. And it's I tell you what's a shame. I don't know if we'll keep this in. No, why not? It's important actually. But that was a series that was written or co-written originally by Graham Linehan. And I absolutely love all his shows. He's written and co-written most of my absolute favourite comedy series. And he's unfortunately turned out to be this dreadful anti-trans.
Oh, really?
Really, really bad. And
dear.
It's kind of like, well, it's a little bit different, I suppose. I can still watch all those shows. It doesn't matter to me, as long as I'm not giving him any money, of course. But I mean, just to watch them on TV, it's still as funny. Whereas I think, this is really going off on a tangent, but if you really like a musician, for example,
yes,
and you've listened to their music all their life, then they turn into something horrible.
Yeah.
Then that actually, for me, does spoil the music. I don't want to listen to Gary Glitter anymore, particularly.
Yeah.
It's interesting that there seems to be that separation for me, maybe not for other people. I'm sure there are plenty of people who just can't watch Graham Linehan programmes anymore because of how he disagrees with their own morals or life experience or ethics or whatever. I
wonder why it's different though, because it is
for me. That's all. I'm curious about why it's different. It is
because J.K. Rowling,
Yes, exactly.
That is kind of the same. Like maybe people can't enjoy Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly.
Who might have loved Harry Potter before, which I really get. Actually, I think I would be affected if I liked her as a writer and knew her views.
Yes,
And I didn't.
it's
I wasn't
happened.
into Harry Potter, but I can see how someone like that would turn me. That I wouldn't want to read them anymore.
These kinds of things crop up all the time, and there was the example of composer Richard Wagner, who was a terrible anti-Semite, and that ended up with his music was banned in Israel for a very long time. Couldn't be performed, etc. I've always been very torn about that, and it's like what we would do. It's like the same thing with Harry Potter or with Graham Linehan's comedy or Gary Glitter's music, if you happen to like that at the time. The music, the stuff that you enjoyed and the thing that made it enjoyable hasn't gone away. It's just that there's obviously a repulsion because you're associating that as the creative output of somebody who seemed actually to be quite terrible. But it does, there's obviously variance in that. As I say, I still enjoy watching all those. It would be a big loss to me because of my autistic nature, in that I do have safe TV shows. And they are the same, I know, from people I work with. They're the same as a lot of other autistic people. That, I will rewatch whole seasons upon seasons of the shows that I like. Many of them are comedies. And it would be a massive loss to me because his are so many of them, like a lot. That would actually be that would be a hard thing to just rule out of my life when I'm feeling wobbly and I just want to, I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders at 3:00 in the morning and I just want to watch 3 or 4 episodes of the IT Crowd. And if I wasn't able to do that, so am I making maybe some bad compromises with my own politics and morals in order to keep something that I feel I need? Maybe.
And there must be people in that situation with Harry Potter.
Definitely. And maybe more so because, if I happen to like black books, it's on TV repeat. I'm not buying anything. Whereas Harry Potter is a franchise. There's merchandise, there's films, there's a lot of money you can spend to contribute into that franchise and then into her enormous coffers.
And yet, as autistic people, there are things that we need. And that we therefore compromise some of our values on. Like I spoke to you before about Amazon and the big, the kind of dilemma. And, at some stages I have thought, yes, I really, really buy into this need to break up with Amazon, need to stop buying on Amazon. And I do make small efforts if I can get something not on Amazon to do that. But it's not wholehearted, and it's not really making a difference, and it's not really making a stand. And I know that, there's other things like that if one was being really, just good and, diligent and conscientious and ethical, one would make different buying choices. And, in so many ways, like where do you stop? There's no end to how many things you can think that you could be living in a better way, and so as to avoid exploitation of workers or, maybe the dodgy beliefs of the people who own the companies. And yet, as autistic people, there's some of these things that we simply, if we didn't have them, some stuff would have such a knock-on effect. Because imagine if we had to spend so many extra spoons always sourcing things elsewhere or driving to get things or whatever, like then we might not be able to do enough work to actually cover our bills. And so there's always compromises, isn't there?
There has to be, and yes, unless we become hugely successful and influential, we are stuck living in the capitalist environment that we were born into.
Yes.
And there's always a question for me when I do see people that are, essentially driven insane by trying to do the right thing at every turn.
Yeah.
I do, look at those people in those situations and thinking, okay, you're actually making yourself quite ill. Mm. And how is that matching up against the gain of what you're doing? And even to the point where I know one or two people in my life who have advocated, campaigned, been activists, around everything they possibly can throughout their life.
Yes.
And now I'm kind of thinking, okay, you're one or two of the people I'm thinking of quite old now, maybe in their 80s, and thinking, okay, is it okay to say you've done your bit now? Because you're probably going to die early, maybe, than you might otherwise. And I think particularly as you get older and frailer, I don't know why I'm thinking of this in particular, but, you are doing more and more harm to yourself.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's turn now. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's no right and wrong, of course, I guess, in this. There are absolutes, and I'm scared of absolutes, especially where those things are concerned, because there's then no awareness of a dividing line between, what's doing some good and what's hurting you.
Yeah. And
maybe even those around you.
Yeah.
But then that starts, you come up with a dilemma. Am I just now making excuses then not to do anything? It's never ending.
No, it's never ending.
And it is one of the privileges of the lives that we live and where we live.
Yeah. That
we do agonize over these things. I can't remember how I got to that. Yes, it's about making the choices of maybe banning something or someone from your life because of something that's happened or that they've done that doesn't fit. And then in some circumstances, it won't make an ounce of difference to the rest of the world. And as you were saying, there are certain things, and we're coming back to being autistic people, that are needs more than they are wants. And that does, I think it's okay to take that into account. That's certainly what I'd be telling people that I work with.
Yeah, and some things just also, I guess, just cost more. If you can only eat certain brands, well then, if that's what you can stomach and that's what you can put into your body, then you pay for those brands. Or, if a kid will only eat McDonald's chips and is otherwise going to starve, you buy them McDonald's chips.
Of course.
Or if they'll only eat chicken nuggets, give them chicken nuggets, for fuck's sake. Don't.
Yes. Fed is best.
Fed is best. Yeah. Do you have any lovely listener emails to read out?
Oh, we do.
We have had
we
some.
Do. No, we do.
We have had some nice.
We do. One
listeners.
from the last episode. Well done. I thought of that right at the beginning.
There's been a couple because I wrote back to somebody like yesterday, and there's somebody else I still need to write back to.
There's Katie talking about carrying bags. There was that.
Okay, read about Katie and carrying bags then.
Katie says, "Hello, ADHD therapist here. I just listened to your most recent podcast and a couple of things came up for me. One, to answer your question about carrying bags, I leave the house carrying nothing most of the time, unless I'm going to work or to the pool. Then I carry a specific work or pool bag. The rest of the time I have keys in one pocket and a phone in the other and my sunglasses tucked in the neck of my shirt. I have a case on my phone for my ID and credit card. I really struggle with feeling burdened by carrying bags, and now I've pared it down to a minimum and love being able to go hands-free and unburdened. 2, as I listened to you talk about different reasons that it might be hard to let go of stuff, I realised something I've never fully understood before. I have a fantastic memory for certain kinds of things, but not for my own history. Sometimes when I think about getting rid of or passing on something, it feels like it would be getting rid of part of me, because the things help me remember the past. Thanks for doing what you do. I really find value in the podcast." Thank you, Katie.
Thank you so much.
What a great
Katie.
Response.
Yes.
That's
so
really great.
Detailed and just adding to what we shared, which is so valuable for us and for everyone else.
Isn't it? And, Katie, that had an impact on both of us. Don't know if you were aware, Siana, but yesterday, the day before, there was a day... Oh, no, it's today I went out without carrying a bag when we went to the village shop.
Okay.
I went out unencumbered, and I think this evening when we went for that walk, you didn't take your backpack.
When we went to the graves, I did have my backpack.
I'm sure there was a time. Maybe it was when we both went out
to the shop.
Oh, it was. We both went out
earlier
without a bag.
in the afternoon. We both
did it together. There you go.
I think we did.
And it was lovely.
Grand.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
It might have been a really big pivot point.
I don't think so. I think it's just me being on holiday and knowing that it was really just to the shop and back. But yes, thank you, Katie. There should be.
Yes,
more.
Let me have a look then. Let's have a look. Hang on. I think I've got
maybe
one here.
Sarah?
There's a Susan Reed.
Susan, yeah.
Did you reply to her?
I wrote back to Susan.
Right, so Susan. Hello, Susan.
No, don't read my message. Read Susan's message. Okay.
Hello, Susan. Oh, no, I wasn't I was saying into the microphone. Hello, Susan.
Okay. Oh,
not
hi,
read.
Susan.
Hi, Siana and Leo. I love your podcast. Thank you, Susan. It has brought such timely peace and insight to my life as I was diagnosed autistic in December last year at the age of 43. I worked for 18 years as a social worker. Then after breaking down, my body refused to let me continue. I have found another way to be. I'm training to be a psychotherapist with children now, and I'm absolutely loving it. Especially when I find precious treasures like yourselves, who are open and authentic about who they are and how they practice. Oh my gosh. I'm wondering if you may consider these two things that are arising equally for me as I process my diagnosis and reflect back on my childhood and earlier life. I notice sadness arising in me often, not depression or distress, but sadness, not in a victim way, but in acknowledgement of what's been missed in my life by me and others. Yes, I'm going to agree with that a lot.
Well, you talked about that today.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing is about finding my voice. Oh, there we go. Another relevant thing to our conversation today. How on earth do I do that? I hope that's a rhetorical question, Susan. There are lots of things hidden within me, as well as all autistic people, and I feel unsure how to find and release my creativity when I've gotten so used to pushing that aspect of me down. I hope that makes sense. It does. I know you've touched on some of these issues on podcasts so far, but I find they just keep coming back up, and I'm wondering if other people feel that too. Thank you so much for sharing your podcast. It's really helped and soothed me in these last months of exploring and processing this new part of my identity. Again, thank you so much, Susan. And therefore, there was a question for the rest of you there about other people sharing some of those feelings. autisticlicense@gmail.com. These are more and more becoming really important parts of episodes as well, that we get to pass your thoughts on to other people and see how they resonate and respond, as well as it resonating to us, which it really does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're so grateful for your messages. They really make us think, and whenever we reply like that, that brings out more. When I wrote to you, Susan, yesterday, and that was helpful for me, and I hope then landed in some way with you. Yes, if anybody wants to respond to Susan or to Katie or to start another new thread, just get in touch with us, and we obviously, after we record this, or sometimes before, we get consent from the people whose extracts we read out, and if they want bits of it read out, then we chop bits of it or whatever. So don't worry that if you write to us, we're going to read it all out and not let you know. You will have the final say on what goes out to the rest of the world, but we can let it go out if you want it to go out. There's a buzzy thing.
It's a moth.
Around.
It's just a moth.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us, lovely listeners. And we will speak with you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Autistic License podcast. You can connect with us via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at autisticlicense.com or by email at autisticlicense@gmail.com. We spell license LICENCE. We also have a Facebook community. You can search for Autistic License Siana and Leo. Siana spelled SIANA, or you can click on the link in the show notes.